All right, in our next innovative session, Building Communities with Organic and Paid Strategy on LinkedIn, you will learn about the organic and paid strategies of building communities and how marketers can use different distribution channels to successfully run these campaigns. This sharing session will be delivered by Sami Elazab from LinkedIn. He is passionate. He is a passionate senior sales leader in charge of LinkedIn marketing solutions across Asia. Sami is capable of strategically planning for the long-term initiatives while ensuring results are over-exceeded within a short span of time. It's a wonderful skill to have. He is a leader who is committed to also ensuring the development of his team by encouraging focused planning and embracing a growth mindset, something that I am myself a huge fan of. You're definitely very honored to have LinkedIn as the exclusive Tech Titan sponsor of this conference. And if you have any questions for Sami, as always, please do post it in the chat box or in the comment section. And Sami will be on air real soon, so stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here this morning. We'll be discussing different ways to build communities with an organic and paid strategy. My name is Sami Elazab, and I manage a team of account directors and client solution managers across Asia. I've been in Singapore for about 10 years now, and for 8 of those years, I've worked for LinkedIn. 4 years ago, I was part of the team that actually started our first office in Malaysia in KL. And part of my remit is to figure out how LinkedIn marketing solutions can expand into other markets across Asia. Today, I'm excited to share with you a few perspectives around organic and paid distribution on LinkedIn. And hopefully these will give you some ideas, some skills, some inspiration to think about the best ways to use these distribution channels in your next marketing campaigns. So here's the agenda. Let me run through it. So the top of the session, we're going to start with really understanding the differences between organic and paid tactics. I'm going to try and tease out how you would use some of these tactics across your marketing funnel. Now, in the second section, we're going to really focus on organic. We're going to go for a deep dive into how to build an organic presence. We'll look to cover company pages, how to use your employees best, and what can good organic content actually look like on the platform. We're then going to move into paid tactics, like what advantages do paid tactics really give to you, and also what are the traps that you can fall for and ones to look out for. And then we're going to start to put all these ingredients together into a recipe for a full funnel organic and paid strategy on the platform. There's not really enough time for Q&A, but if you leave any questions in the chat box, the team are going to collect all your questions and your details, and then we'll have someone on my team reach out to you guys to speak to you about any questions that you have. All right, so moving on to the first section was around understanding organic and paid. So I wanted to kick off this presentation with an analogy on how to view a social media strategy with organic and paid tactics. The analogy comes from an excellent blog post on LinkedIn by a guy called Jerry Dakin, who is Suntree's head of global media. Hopefully someone in the team is going to be posting a link to that blog right now, and I hope you spend some time later today reading that blog. It's a really good one. So here's the analogy, right? So your brand is a rocket, right? You've invested a lot of money on your rocket, making it as beautiful as possible with this amazing content. And your goal is to get this beautiful rocket all the way to the stars, where ultimately your business objectives are there waiting for you. Now, of course, your rocket has to launch from somewhere, right? And on LinkedIn, your launch pad is your LinkedIn company page. So the question here is, how do we get your beautiful rocket to the stars and have as many people as possible seeing and engaging with that rocket? Now, one way is through organic social. And the benefit of organic social is that it attracts a crowd of rocket fans, and these fans tend to be highly engaged with your content. You know, they admire your rocket from up close. They may even tell others about it or look to share photos of your rocket within their networks, attracting even more rocket fans. Now, one thing you'll learn from these fans is what kind of content they like and also what kind of content they don't like. Their engagement can inform you on what messages your community finds valuable, what they find helpful, and ultimately it can give you ways and ideas on how to better improve your rocket. Now, that said, despite the growth and loyalty of this community, your fan base is always going to be small compared to your actual total addressable market. And I think we're all in agreement that we want more than just our super fans to see our rocket. The only way for us to make our rocket fly is ultimately by putting fuel into it. So paid media is that rocket fuel, right? So when you put paid media behind your content, the rocket blasts off high into the sky and becomes visible not just to your fans, but also to a larger section of your total addressable market. And in the end, your brand and content needs to be seen by as many people as possible, not just by your fan base, by lots of people to help you reach your business and marketing goals. So what is this analogy trying to convey to you? It's ultimately trying to say that the best strategy is to do not just organic, not just paid, but actually do both of them at the same time. So organic is going to help you build and nurture those communities and those fans that you already have, those followers that are already on your page. And the paid side is going to send your rocket to the stars where everyone has the opportunity to see it. Now, we have research to back this up. It's not just a fun rocket analogy. So our research actually shows that an integrated strategy that blends the best of organic and paid can produce better business results for your company. So you want to use paid at the top of the funnel. That helps drive reach to attract new LinkedIn members and to come follow your company page, but also your brand as a whole. You then want to look at the middle of the funnel. You want to nurture those who are currently following your company page with organic content, and that drives engagement, helps push your middle funnel thought leadership with paid new audiences. And then as we move to the bottom of the funnel, you want to now drive action. So both organic and paid can be an effective way of actually reaching your audience. So in this research, as you can see on the left here, we saw that followers who were nurtured with consistent organic content were 61% more likely to engage with or convert with a targeted paid ad. And brands that did a combined organic and paid strategy also saw 14% more conversions and 12% cheaper cost per leads compared to brands who did only a paid strategy. So I hope that the rocket ship analogy helps to understand the core differences between organic tactics and paid tactics. One builds and nurtures your community of followers. The other drives reach to new audiences. And let's now dive a little bit deeper into some of the tactics that you can use to improve your organic campaigns and hopefully nurture a more engaged community. So there are 3 things you need to set up before you can launch a successful organic strategy on LinkedIn. So the first is to optimize that launchpad, right? Remember, this is now your LinkedIn company page. And you can do that by leveraging the main company page and other pages, which we call showcase and product pages, which I'll go into shortly. The second focus area here is to create that beautiful rocket, right? How do we construct a beautiful rocket that will attract an audience and keep them engaged? With organic specifically, the challenge is to make the content so creative, so emotional, so distinctive that your community is compelled to share it to their networks and ultimately help that rocket fly. And finally, how do we get that rocket to the moon organically? We're going to cover push tactics like how we leverage our employees, how we leverage hashtags, and how we leverage A/B testing to help boost the reach of your rocket. So the first step is to optimize that LinkedIn company page. Now, remember, this is the launch pad of your strategies, this is the launch pad of your rocket. Your brand might see the additional value in segmenting your community into separate showcase pages. I'll demonstrate this through leveraging an example in Essentia. So here's Essentia, right? They have their main company page. They have that very famous purple arrow, and this page is actually ran by their HR and their comms team. And it's focused on employer branding and nurturing prospective, future talents. So while they're using this main company page, they also have these different showcase pages. And these showcase pages can now be used to build and nurture different audiences within their customers' buying committee. So here's the main company page. An example of a showcase page might be here. So they have another page which is called Essentia Strategy. Now they created a showcase page housing thought leadership and content essentially for strategy teams. They then also have business operations, which is for leaders. And another example here, which is Essentia Technology. And this page now is a community of nurtured tech developers and engineers, and ultimately there's content in there around tech that will resonate with that audience. Now, if we just double click a little bit on the Essentia Operations section, we can see here that the content they served up is from everything from like market research to industry news and operations to case studies about Essentia's operations and services. This is one way a company like Essentia is using LinkedIn. So the company page, again, That is their main page. It's run by their talent team. It's run by their HR team. They use it very much for talent branding. And then they have these different showcase pages, which can help nurture different audiences within their customers buying committee. All right, and then we also have LinkedIn product pages. Now, part of building a home for a community is to encourage engagement for a two-way interaction between brand and the customer. And product pages are not only a great way for brands to showcase their products, but it also is a great tool for your followers to share their experiences, leave recommendations, and then ultimately write reviews as well. So LinkedIn product pages allow your existing customers to help influence the purchasing decisions of the future customers that you're trying to attain. So now that we spent a little bit of time creating that launch pad, so it looks all beautiful, it's all ready to go, the next option is to move over to how we create that rocket. So as part of this study, so a few years ago, Nielsen released this study in 2017, and it said that all the elements of campaign effectiveness and their findings were pretty revolutionary at the time. So nearly half of the effectiveness of any campaign you launch is dependent on creativity, so 47%. So it's more important that your brand, it's more important than the brand equity, it's more important than reach, your targeting, and recency. So creative is literally the single most important driver of relevance and effectiveness for every campaign and every community that you nurture. Now, on LinkedIn, Southeast Asia, we can see there's lots of different types of content that resonate with our audience. If we look at Southeast Asia specifically, content around talent branding, information helping our members stay informed, and then thought leadership resonates way more than stuff like lead generation or product-focused content. So let's look at some examples and look at some of these creative pillars. So humor is something that's often not really thought of on LinkedIn, right? So a light-hearted analogy in a working culture can have a really positive effect. I think when people think of LinkedIn, historically, a lot of thought of, it has to be professional content because it's a professional network. But really, we're trying to reach out to humans, right? So if you're a community manager or your objective is community engagement, then emotional and social content works far better than kind of rational content on LinkedIn. It doesn't need to be super product focused. Like, how do you connect with those humans you're trying to reach to? Think about the ways of delivering regular news, insights, and announcements in interesting ways that will engage your community. On the right-hand side here, you can see Netcall Cloud. They use memes, right? Pretty famous meme there, and different funny ways to actually engage with our audience. And another side is like the importance of showing the emotional side of your company's culture. So emotion is a huge driver of positive sentiment, awareness, and action on LinkedIn. So some brands are getting very, very good at it. On the slide here on the left, you'll see the Air New Zealand post, right? So this is the CEO of Air New Zealand physically working on the aisles for the customers during the pandemic, right? Obviously, that time was a real crisis for airlines, but this post is there to demonstrate that as a culture of the airline, everyone digs in and everyone's there to help and make sure that customers are being served. And I think that comes across quite nicely with a very simple post, one line, and a post of their CEO there doing it. On the right-hand side here, we see a post from OCBC, so Singaporean Bank, one of the best performing posts over the past 12 months. And it revolves around a story of their staff stepping in to stop a customer from getting scammed. It's really well written and it celebrates the culture of the brand and the value of their employees. Now, this post did so well that OCBC actually decided to later boost this post through paid amplification. The reason they did that is they saw the traction organically and they thought, right, if I want to reach my total addressable audience, people that don't know about OCBC, members that aren't necessarily customers of OCBC already, this kind of content is likely to resonate with that total addressable audience. So therefore, we should pay on it and boost on it. If you want to do something like that, LinkedIn make it really, really easy. So a successful piece of content, you'll see on the left-hand side there, you just need to push the boost button on the right, and then that can amplify to a larger addressable audience that you're trying to reach. Now, finally, a simple but seamlessly obvious trick to get great organic content is to follow tightly your brand guidelines and leverage your brand colors, logos, mascots, and taglines in every single piece of content that you produce. Some great examples on this slide, right? If you took Salesforce here, if you took away their name, you'd be able to identify that it's a Salesforce ad just by the way that they're using cartoons and the colors and the branding, right? So these assets are what make your brand distinctly you. And the benefit of doing this is the simple pattern recognition in the consumer's mindset, right? So having a consistent style means that you cannot be mistaken for one of your competitors. Okay, there's a lot of creative tips I've rattled off there in 1 minute, and there's a few more I'm going to give you here. But what does great organic content really look like on LinkedIn? And to do that, I'm going to leverage my own company. I'm going to leverage LinkedIn to show you some great examples. Right. So you can see here that all our assets on LinkedIn, they have that LinkedIn brand and field, right? You've got the color blue there. On the bottom left, you can see the kind of cartoony one. That's very LinkedIn. We've used our own employees in some of the creative. The idea is to try and, make this emotional lead, something humorous. It's encouraging participation. And, this is very much LinkedIn. One thing, though, I really did want to call out, you will hopefully see how simple and uncluttered a lot of these visuals are, right? LinkedIn's posts have a lot of open real estate, and sometimes less is more when it comes to trying to make an impact on these posts. So keep the visuals both clean and distinctly you and on brand to your company. Okay, so we've laid out the foundations. We have a great launch pad. We've built an amazing rocket that is attracting fans because it's so creative and emotional and distinctive, and it's in tune with the sentiments of the community. But that just isn't enough to get this rocket to fly. So we need to give it some fuel. And while your fans may be one source, it's not the only source, and it's not necessarily the best source organically to actually engage on LinkedIn. So regularly, a better community to leverage organic reach is your community of employees. Think of employees as a third distribution tactic you have to leverage on LinkedIn, right? You have organic, you have paid, you have your employees. So like organic, activating your employees to share your content is completely free. Like paid, the collective network of your employees' audience is massive, often far greater than the follower numbers on your company page. So huge organic reach for your content is generally possible if you can mobilize your employees to share company content. And there's some great stats on this slide. In terms of engagement, posts that are shared by employees generate twice the click-through rate than normal posts. In terms of trust, people unsurprisingly trust people that they're connected to more than they do brands. And our research shows that employees have 5 to 10 more connections than companies have followers. So a huge opportunity to leverage your employees, and often an untapped resource that many businesses are not taking advantage of. Other ways to increase your organic reach is through hashtags on LinkedIn. So there are a couple of ways of doing this. You have generic hashtags. These are stuff like hashtag cloud, tech, sustainability. And this will net you on average some minor organic reach, maybe like a 2% little increase or little boost. Then you have your unique hashtags. So if you think of this event today, hashtag digital X data is the one that we're using. So these little personal ones, you can actually create your own channel through LinkedIn. So this example in the middle is actually Professor Mark Ritson. So he has a hashtag, which is hashtag FE Ritson series. And on there, he has a collection of, I think it's 8 case studies. And he's referring to all the most awarded ads of all time. So if you were interested in that, you could go to that channel, you could go to that hashtag, and you could see all those case studies in one place. That's a great way for you also to leverage your organic content as a business. Some quick tips around hashtags if you're posting. Don't use loads and loads of hashtags. We recommend 1 to 3 at most, so no need for 100 hashtags. Use a mix of own and branded hashtags because it'll help broaden your reach. And I would test as well to see, what's working best for your brand. And last, we're going to talk about some A/B testing, right? So another good way to organically see what's going to work best for your brand. So this example on the left-hand side, you have another LinkedIn Marketing Solutions post. So it says, accelerate the success of your marketing campaign by signing up for a free LinkedIn webinar. Now on the right-hand side, all we've done is call out the audience, right? So there it is. APAC marketers, would you like to accelerate the success of your marketing campaign? Now, by calling out the audience, it has a very significant increase in click-through rate. So it's actually a 53% increase on the click-through rate just by identifying that audience. We found this a regular thing in terms of targeting the audience versus not targeting the audience, but there's also other things that you should try testing just to see what works best for your brand. So always be testing, and those little tests might be able to make a huge impact on how you're performing. Okay, so now moving on to fueling with the paid strategy. So With paid tactics, the creation of the launch pad and some of the content best practices that I've already shared are very much the same, right? The biggest difference is that our paid power is going to help again to really take that content, to take that rocket ship and get you fueled up to the moon. Right. So as I said earlier, paid is the fuel that blasts your rocket into space. But on board your rocket is your guidance system, right? So this is now your targeting. And at LinkedIn, this is very much one of our USPs, right? We can help direct which way that rocket goes. So the value of paid is that you can control your rocket, right? So through targeting, you have more control over the sort of how the content's going to perform. And ultimately, it allows you to choose who's going to see the content, when they're going to see the content, and how many of them are actually going to see the content. So don't undersell the value of the content in your marketing. It allows you to be better informed, more agile, and strategic when it comes to performance. One of the primary risks about a paid strategy is that clients can often overindulge in the targeting. And they try to drive the content to a hyper-targeted audience. And hyper-targeting is both expensive and ineffective. It's incorrect to think that targeting a small number of the right customers is the most profitable way of targeting your customers. Right, so the best available evidence suggests that brands, specifically B2B brands, grow by reaching every buyer in their category, not by hyper-targeting a narrow subsegment of buyers. To avoid hyper-targeting, go broad, right? Target not just the decision maker, but think about who else is going to be in that buying committee, who else is in that decision-making process. You want to find the right balance between reach and relevance with your targeting. Now, the same lesson could be said around personalization or hyper-personalization. Now, from a creative perspective, developing 100 ads for 100 different customers is going to be 100 times more difficult and 100 times more expensive than developing one ad for 100,000 customers. I'm going to say that one more time. Developing 100 ads for 100 different customers is about 100 times more difficult and 100 times more expensive than developing one ad for 100,000 customers. Any benefits from personalization are almost certainly cancelled out by the increased complexity. Personalization makes your marketing less agile and more expensive to produce. The correct way to personalize is not to go niche, but to focus on the content and the themes that are most relevant to your audience, yet still separate you from your competitors. Okay. Another trap that we see our clients fall into quite regularly. So, are you in the habit of spending all your quarterly budget in the last month of the quarter? If so, please stop doing that. This is why you shouldn't do it. So on the right-hand side here is a specific client example, right? This is a client in the education sector. They were stuck in a pattern of what I call spiked spending, and instead of being always on. So in the red, on the top right there, they spent about 6K of budget and then stopped spending for a few days or weeks. They went quiet. Another spike, 4K budget, they went down. Now, this is not ideal, right? You can see the CTR directly correlated to the amount of spend. And instead, what we want to see is engagement rise with the assistance of paid, not just on the dependence of paid, right? So the client changed their strategy. They moved from a series of consistent spending to around $500 a day and always on strategy. And you can see that the CTR spiked significantly over time, right? There's a 3 times increase here on their CTR given the content, and it gave chance for the actual content to build momentum. And the spend here was the same from the blue and the red. So that always on approach is going to give you a much more cost-effective and impactful campaign. Okay, so we're in the final stretch here, not long to go. We've learned a few things. The best strategy is to leverage both organic and paid tactics across the funnel. Paid will help you reach new audiences, while organic helps nurture that community of fans and followers. We've hopefully learned about the different types of content that can drive strong engagement on LinkedIn and the different ways to push that content out to new audiences, whether through employees, hashtags, or whether it be through paid tactics. Now let's look to put many of these elements together into a template of a full funnel strategy. Now, it wouldn't be a strategy without goals and objectives. So to help you with that, LinkedIn has a campaign manager tool, and you can see here that we have 7 goals that you can select right? And it's very important that you select the correct goal because we're going to optimize based on the metrics that make the most sense. An example, I'm not going to go through all of these, but as an example, brand awareness, right? Brand awareness is going to optimize for reach and CPMs, not clicks and engagement. Choose this goal for brand building, where you want to get as many people as possible and you want them to see that content, right? Similarly, if you look at something like lead generation forms, now this is an objective which is going to help drive something like event signups or white paper downloads, and we're going to optimize to that performance versus to impressions. Okay, so very important to get the objective right. Once we understand our goals, let's explore like a one-page full funnel organic and paid strategy. So starting with the funnel itself. All right, at the top of the funnel here, you see it's fame and awareness. Now, fame is largely driven by your brand's equity. It's how many followers you acquire organically without any marketing. It's the brand's fame that attracts followers to your company page. And ultimately, big brands are going to have an advantage over smaller brands. And as marketers, in the short term, there's little we can actually do about that, to be perfectly honest. So let's turn our attention to campaigns that do drive better awareness and brand building. And these ingredients that we need to include are things like content type, audience, you see them on the top here, business objectives, and then your campaign objectives that you can set within LinkedIn Campaign Manager. Okay, this is your brand equity that I mentioned earlier. This is the fame section. Bigger brands do better. The awareness piece is where we can play a little bit, right? So for awareness, paid is the only tactic to consider. Right, it's very unlikely that the people who follow your company page are unaware of you. In fact, they probably know you really, really, really well. So it's a waste of time creating organic awareness content for followers who already know who you are. The content we want to use here needs to be creative, emotional, and focus on introducing your brand to a new audience who are not necessarily in the market to buy, right? The content needs to capture attention and not engagement. So we're looking really to measure impressions here when it comes to those awareness campaigns. As we go down onto the middle, so the organic content in the mid funnel should focus on community and content that chases engagement from your followers. Okay, so it builds. Right. So engagement is important here. You want your community to react to your posts, right? We want likes, we want comments, we want shares, we want clicks. Therefore, align all your objectives in Campaign Manager with those actions with engagement and website visits. When it comes to the paid side, still in the mid funnel here. So the content that creates product is, we want to create that product demand. So leverage content like reviews and case studies. Start to post content that is still emotional but uses logic around the benefits and the benefits of the product. Business objectives of the mid funnel to convince customers to renew and upsell, as well as to continue to be loyal of the brand and to not churn. So promote your events, use stuff like lead gen forms. As we get to the bottom of the funnel, we want now to drive action specifically to clicks to lead generating content. At this stage, a combination of paid and organic is recommended. All right. When it comes to demand gen content, just ask straight out for their business, right? Use FOMO or urgency or spur to action, whatever you want to call it. Discounts, sales, closing dates, offers. All these can be used to leverage to convert your audience now rather than later. Your business objectives here are to secure new business, to make renewals, to do upsells. Your engagement metric here is clicks and lead generation form completes. And then once you've got those, you want to score these to see how they measure out in your MQL, so your marketing qualified leads. Finally, use your lead campaign objective in the LinkedIn Campaign Manager. And that's it. So a quick kind of top to down review on how to strategically do an organic and paid strategy across the funnel through the lens of content, audience, business objectives, and campaign manager objectives. We're pretty much there. Initially, I was going to end this slide by saying that we've done it. We finally landed. We're on the moon. But the rocket ship has taken off from that fantastic launch pad. It's filled with fuel with the paid campaigns, and you finally got to the moon and it's all over. But with marketing, the truth is that it's never really over, right? We have to continue to learn, to adapt, to test. We have to be at the forefront of all that to compete with our competitors. So we've gone past the moon and we're still going, and we're looking to optimize and learn and test and continue to improve. So to recap, the best strategies is to leverage both organic and paid tactics across the funnel on LinkedIn. Paid will help you reach new audiences, while organic will help you reach and nurture your community of fans and followers. And there we go. The rocket is still going. Thank you all for your time. Please feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. My name's up there. Feel free to connect to me. I'm always happy to meet a new person. Also, please remember to leave any questions in the chat. We are going to collect them and we will get back to you and speak to you shortly if you need us. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event.